Thanks, Mr Speaker, and it is a great pleasure to be able to support this important bid tonight and completely reject the opposition's amendment. This issue has been one which is one of the primary reasons why I am back in this place, and it is because when I was asked to run again for Monero, one of the constants that I was hearing was about the teacher shortages and about the number of classes which were composite in playgrounds for hours and hours on end because of the shortage of teachers in Monero. I said at the time that I decided to take up the opportunity to run again because so many teachers had been talking to me about this, and because the former Nationals member for Monero wouldn't even acknowledge that there was a problem. Now, that was another disastrous element of their campaign, apart from the factors which actually got me to be the candidate in the first place. This is a situation where, as an area which bounds the ACT, we were seeing firsthand the problems that the difference in salaries was making. And I've actually spoken to many teachers since. We were seeing an exodus of teachers into the ACT where their salaries for starting levels were much higher than New South Wales, when their salaries right through were higher, and where their workloads were lower. It's something which was the reason why we'd seen a 419% increase in the number of teacher vacancies in the Monero electorate. When I was the member previously, in 2011, we had 10 vacancies. By 2023, 51.9 vacancies. I was hearing constantly from the 517 teachers in the public schools in the Monero electorate about the issues they had. I met with the Queanbeyan Teachers Association a few weeks ago, and then the Braidwood Teachers Association. They again told me about the exodus to the ACT, and they again talked to me about the issues which they needed to see resolved with the arrangement that the government has now put in place, courtesy of the Deputy Premier, and I congratulate her on her work on this in actually addressing the issues. But what we saw from the opposition, and we've seen it today in question time and again in these really very disappointing speeches that we've seen in this debate tonight, is an opposition which says, don't raise the bar, keep the bar low, because then you won't have to worry about putting anyone else's salary up. Well, I'm not afraid of talking about increasing salaries for the rest of the public sector and for some of those important areas that we need to service, but we had to focus immediately and early on teachers because that is where we had a desperate shortage. We saw amazing comments from Bronnie Taylor, who is a resident of the Monero electorate, the Deputy Nationals leader, who went on 2CC radio and said, when you have a pay rise, you should have a productivity increase. Well, she clearly doesn't talk to any teacher who can tell you how overworked they are. The teachers who came to me at that Braidwood Teachers Association meeting and told me that when they had 2 teachers in their house, they had to roster on the nights, not the days, of looking after the children so that they could take it in turns to do all the paperwork that they had to do as part of their job. It is simply not a situation that could be allowed to continue, and I've got no doubt that the Deputy Nationals leader was taking pride of place when they opened some extensions at the Monero High School. But I bet she didn't walk around and hear from the principal that the nice new open learning area they had built was being used exclusively to put composite classes in because they didn't have enough teachers to actually teach those classes. It's a situation that had to change. It's a situation that I've seen firsthand in our family. My daughter is a teacher at Carabao High School in Queanbeyan, and she said to my wife Cherie, who happens to be here in the gallery today with us tonight, along with my mother, and I welcome them here, it's a situation which had my daughter say to my wife yesterday, I might stay in teaching for a few more years. And I have to tell you what, that thrills me as her parent, because public teaching in our public schools is one of the most honourable and important professions you can engage in. And I want to say thank you to the teachers in Monero electorate who've stayed in public education and stayed teaching. I want to say thank you to them for their faith in supporting a Labor government which recognised the need to bring them up to the standard to keep them in the profession, and which hasn't engaged in the sort of awful game we've seen here of the opposition, which instead of saying teachers deserve a pay rise, it says, oh, how can you afford it? It says, oh, you won't be able to pay for it. It says you're destroying the budget. It doesn't say these people need to be properly recompensed for the effort they put in. And that's what Labor does, and that's why we're all here proudly on this side of the House to say so. Yeah.